Anything else, Dr. Nail? We're going to read a few more of these black
Yeah,
codes.
I think they're wanting to hear the different codes because
Um, let's read 36. The slave who was sentenced to suffer death on the denunciation of their master shall, when the master is not an accomplice to the crime, be appraised before his execution by two of the principal inhabitants of the locality, who shall be especially appointed by the judge, and the amount of said appraisement shall be paid to the master to raise the sum, and shall be collected by the persons invested with that authority. So you can see when agent representatives of the gangs of New York are sent out on behalf of the corporate state would be politically referred to as the master. So when you see in the Christian Black Codes master, just change it to the corporate state, whether you're dealing with the mayor or the governor, etc., or any agents or agencies sent out to feed upon the people by them. Those would be called contractors. And they're delegated what you would call, or given what you would call, pledged authority to the corporate exercise. This is why, when for our people who don't really comprehend some of these principles, why when you do any research in Supreme Court cases concerning so-called, and this is a designed statement, so-called police brutality, and you will see all Supreme Court cases will demonstrate or rule that the obligations of the police is not to the people, but to the corporations. That's a fact. Just a reminder so you comprehend what's going on out in these streets on your land with these demons who you've been thinking was your government, who are not your government, never were. Article 37, we forbid all the officers of the Superior Council and all our other officers of the justice in the colony to take any fees, or receive any uh, perquisites in criminal suits against slaves under the penalty, and in so doing, of being dealt with as guilty of extortion. Article 38. We also forbid all our subjects in this colony, whatever their condition or rank may be, to apply on their own private authority the rack of their slaves under the pretense whatever, under any pretense whatever, and to mutilate said slaves in any one of their limbs or in any part of their bodies, under the penalty of confiscation of said slave. A master so offending shall be liable to a criminal prosecution. We only permit masters, when they shall think that the case requires it, to put their slaves in irons and to have them whipped and rode or roped. Now, with Article 38, now you understand where people be sitting around talking about, they're packing 80% of the people in prisons are blacks and Puerto Ricans and everything, and this is racist and stuff. No, it's the Christian Black Codes. And those are tags put on Moors under subjects. They are not pedigree identities. Blacks and Puerto Ricans or Latinos are not pedigree identities or historical pedigrees of peoples. They are tags put upon defeated Moors by the hybrid Europeans, regulated by members of the Circle Church and Chancery, with all jurisdictional powers run from Fleet Street, England, delivered to Washington, D.C., then distributed to the different municipalities and the corporate states or states of jurisdictions, distinguished from state republic jurisdictions, which were overthrown. Thank you very much. They're all run by the Christian Black Codes. That's where you get those abuses from. Article 43. Husbands and wives shall not be seized and sold separately, when belonging to the same master, and their children whom under 14 years of age shall not be separated from their parents, and such seizures and sales shall be null and void. The present article shall apply to voluntary sales, and in such cases, sales should take place in violation of the law. The seller shall be deprived of the slave. He was illegally retained, and said slave shall be adjudged to the purchase without any additional. Article 44, slaves 14 years old and from this age up to 60 who are settled on lands and plantations and are at present working on them shall not be liable to seizure for debt, except for what may be due out of the purchase money agreed to be paid for them, unless said grounds or plantations shall be distressed and seized, and judicial sale of a real estate without including the slave of the aforesaid age who are part of said estate shall be deemed null and void.
So, you know what that sounds like? What came to mind when you're reading that? When we're talking about the issue now about the border and unaccompanied minors.
Yes. All of that operation is still the black codes. And people keep looking at, well, where's due process? They're not constitutional operators. They're organized criminals. They're not your government. They're Roman curate members. That's a fact. You know, our people, it's hard for our people to accept that among the hybrids operating in North America, that these people are Roman Curia members and that they're carrying out the rules of Rome. They're not carrying out justice. They don't love Jesus. They just use him as a front. They don't love Muhammad and they don't love the Prophet. They don't love Allah. They're using them as a front. They use them as a front to get the people's trust. Then you start dealing with them and they screw you every time. And you ain't caught on yet. It's not racism. It's the Christian black codes.
For Dr. G, you took the plea. No, I did not take the plea, Sade. I was a city official. And they just dismissed it. I didn't plea anything. You know, with that ticket, Grand Sheik. Someone said I took the plea. I didn't take the plea. I didn't take the plea. I
and
said
even then it's interesting because
when I showed up, I sat there for 15 minutes. After they released me on my OR, I came back for court, and I sat there for 15 minutes. They said dismissed. It was dismissed. I never even went in the courtroom, so-called courtroom. I sat out there, but I was a city official. But I didn't plead.
Yeah, of course you're not, because that admits the jurisdiction. Keep that in mind.
Right.
They had no jurisdiction in the first place.
Yeah.
Article 50. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves. And I suggested y'all who are listening, look up the word manumit. So when you have these so-called black scholars talking about freed slaves and manumitters, and we was manumitted in 1865 and Juneteenth and all this stuff, that's BS. You've been played and you're being played. Manumission does not mean liberation. You better believe that. Like for real, for real, for real. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves either by testamentary dispositions or by acts inter vivos. And write that down, inter vivos. That's INTER VIVACE. Pay attention to all of these law terms because they have much to do with the social engineering that's been going on relative to our people. Say it again.
How do you spell it again?
Inter vivos. Yeah. INTER, one word, Vivus, VIVACE, and the other word, manumit, MANUMIT, MANUMIT. None of these words mean what our people have been thinking they mean. So our people think they've been liberated in slavery and 1865, and we was able to get our own peanut butter sandwiches at cents. You stop lying to yourself. BS. All this stuff was institutionalized.
Inter VIVOS.
Inter vivos.
INTER VIVOS.
Right here is what we're talking about. The time that this was written. This is in 1700s.
Okay.
The structure of the spelling may change, but this is the spelling.
Giving between living people.
1700s. This is the spelling.
A legal term referring to a transfer or gift made during one's lifetime.
Yes. So transfer of responsibility, jurisdiction, gift, people, trade. Gotta put it in perspective. Anyway. Pardon me. Yeah, so, and thereas slaves with a view to acquire the necessary means to purchase their freedom may be tempted to commit theft or deeds of plunder, no matter to set free the slaves without the obtaining from the superior council a decree of permission to that effect, which permission shall be granted without cost when the motive for the setting free of said slaves, as specified in the petition of the master, shall appear legitimate to the tribunal. And all future acts for the emancipation of the slaves freed shall not be entitled to their freedom. They shall be taken away by their former masters and confiscated for the benefit of the India Company. So the India Company and the Virginia Company is really what our people have been falsely calling the United States.
And when we were listening to Mel K talking about the Pesos family and all that they own, which is now appears to be multiple corporations, but it's really owned by this one trust with the 12 or 13.
Now, and then you're talking about
bloodline families.
Now, keep in mind when you're looking at that, you're looking at the hybrid Europeans that took over Iberia. Iberia is now known as Europe.
Okay.
So now you're talking about Germany, France, etc. And this is again why when they're teaching history, they will teach Europe as only the hybrids. They won't teach Europe as the Picts, the Maoris, and the Dubs, which are the true Europeans, which are Africans. That's why they won't say Iberia.
It's funny when you see a lot of so-called Africans in Europe, they act as if they came there instead of the.
it's the disassociation practices that you talked about. Mm-hmm. But again, just like we said before, just like when we were talking, I think the last time we showed some of the coats of arms of Europe with Joel A. Rogers, one of the world's most awarded scholars. Mm-hmm. Do you see any pale faces?
No.
Not a one. See, so people keep forgetting in the early 1800s is this is when we lost Europe or Iberia. The same way, like when you see a lot of people talking jurisdictions or like they're talking about the economic trade competition between Russia, the United States, and China now, as an example, in Brazil, or what they call the BRICS nations, competing with the U.S. They keep looking at it from the perspective that they're competing with a country. Mm. They're not looking at that they're competing with a corporate entity, operators of Rome, who have been going to and fro the earth, devouring nations, and then pretending to be a nation themselves. So you got to look at that paradox that creates a lot of convoluted thought, doesn't it? But not knowing that is dangerous to people when they come to jurisdiction. This is why people, and again, a lot of questions that will come to pass, or come about to even some of these conversations is if people don't get over that mountain of miscomprehension of understanding that the United States is not a country, never was a country. If they don't wrap their heads around that, they still don't get it. If they don't wrap their heads around that, when the hybrid Europeans keep saying America as if it's a country, that they're being robbed as soon as they make those kind of statements. It's a total misrepresentation. And so a lot of the information is to get us clear. In other words, if you can't comprehend what's broken, you can't fix it. You'll never fix it. This is another reason why projection is practiced by them, by projecting deeds that they do to others on others to distract you from them, and also to claim names and that are not their own, and then put names on the things that are not their own in order to claim things that are not their own and to distort history. So when you hear hybrid Europeans talking about America as a country, you already know that that person is trying to steal the birthright and the estate, or trying to maintain status quo, even if they're making statements that appear to sound restorative of the republic order, if you get the whole point. When you see them talking about America as a country, fraud. If you see them keep continuing calling the United States as if it's a country, fraud. Because what they're really they're just trying to avoid, which you can comprehend politically, of them admitting that North America, Central America, South America is Morocco. That's the country. Morocco is the land. That's the country. Now, the political jurisdiction of trade that took over after breach of treaty is the U.S. corporation, India company, and the Virginia company, pretending to be the country and styled as the United States on corporate papers that's available to anybody that does research. So all they needed was a few generations under the Board of Education to convince these people that the U.S. was a country. And that's the paradigm that we're dealing with today. So when people are trying to fix things, they keep on speaking of the corporation of conquest as the country. At that point in the linguistic structure, they're giving up their birthright. You see, so we have to fix that, don't we?
Yes.
This is why we have to redundantly, and to the point of being boring, redundantly remind people, with the change of knowledge comes a change of your language. And this is, again, when people who claim to be scholars keep calling the U.S. the country, you already know they're either compromised agents and indeed not the scholars that they claim. You want to read some more of these black coats?
Yes.
So I'm going to read 53 and 54. We commend all manumitted slaves to show the profoundest respect to their former masters. This is all that honor that you saw people doing to the corporate state and keep trying to be civil rights citizens and all this kind of stuff. 14th Amendment, this is where that's where that mentality comes from. To their widows and their children, and any injury or insult offered by said manumitted slaves to their former masters, their widows or children, shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. Now you see that their variable attitude that our people be calling prejudice, double standard. It's not a double standard. The standard between the corporate state or master and the citizens or the slave. So when you're looking at U.S. citizen, you're looking at slave. And we ain't U.S. citizens. We're nationals of the land. Just keep that in mind. and they shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. We, however, declared them exempt from the discharge of any duties or services, and from payment of all taxes or fees or anything else in relationship to their person, or to their personal or real estate, either during the life or after the death of said slave. Article 54, we grant manumitted slaves the same rights, privileges, and immunities which are enjoyed by free-born persons. It is our pleasure that their merit in having acquired their freedom shall produce in their favor, not only with regards to their persons, but also to their property, the same effects which our other subjects derive from the happy circumstance of their having been born free. In the name of the King, Fazende Bruxelles, Paris, Bienville de la Grâce, March 1724. There you go. So when you study the Christian Black Codes and you study the details, and keep in mind, you just change the word master to municipality, county, state. And you change the slave into citizen, U.S. citizen, 14th Amendment person, Negroes and blacks, etc. And then you claim the masters who have manumitted their estates to the corporate states under manumission, or transferred their ownership of slaves to the Congress. We refer to them as ghouls or dragons of the Ku Klux Klan, also known as, quote unquote, white people. There you go. It's not hidden and is known by all scholars. However, truth is not popular because it kind of busts people's bubble. You know, people have their imaginary, oh, I'm a U.S. citizen with a U.S. sandwich passport and stuff. That's your opinion. That's not the reality. So we need to fix that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And can it be fixed by a being who doesn't know that slavery, as they know it connotatively, was institutionalized? It was not eliminated. And that there are more slaves that are functioning at Midgard than ever in human history, that more people are enslaved today than there ever were in human history, and that all your permits and licenses, etc., are issues of bodily instruments from the church and the chancery members in service to the popes of Rome, and are actually tithing fees that convert people's rights and liberties into crimes, which is why they traffic people on the street and they stop people and take their vessels. People need to know what's really going on.
Okay, here's Angel says, a salute with all due respect. Is not the Grand Sheik being subjected to the same statutes and codes,
absolutely,
codes as the whole of U.S. Aborigines by the foreign de facto corporate body politic?
Absolutely. And I've been fighting for 40 years. Some wins, some losses, but I ain't a punk and I ain't giving up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me see. Section. Someone says to read White's concise, trusty handbook and learn how to live under your own written law of trust. Actually, that's on the flash drive. Yeah, we got it on the drive now. Actually, let me see. What's it? Yakub Bey says, how can we establish a militia in every territory to start? Where did it go? I think he said to enforce. Kind of slipped away that quick.
I can't hear you.
I'm trying to find where it went. Let me see. Oh, how can we establish a militia in every territory to start I guess, to enforce the treaty and consular jurisdiction.
The interesting thing that I say in response to that today and now is the war, the Inquisition operations that are operative today are more what you may call ethereal or spiritual than they are in that plane of thinking. Not that is not a necessity.
Type stuff.
It is that the energy, the heavenly energy, that may be involved, but that is more minor now. It is more that you armor yourself in the spiritual realm and in the ethereal knowledge right now, because those things will be rendered somewhat obsolete anyway. That is not a pacification answer, that is a factual answer. And it is more like the beast has mastered the area of imposed human suffering. They have mastered that. You will not acquire from the beast a weapon against himself. However, you have a weapon that is far beyond their capacity to beat. That weapon is called truth. Also, you have another weapon that you have not been using that is more powerful than all of them, and that is your intuitive mind that you have been by design encouraged to suppress and have lacked the knowledge of how powerful it actually is. Look in those areas and find your armor. It's my answer.
Oh.
Don't think that you're without weapons that are needed, because that's not the case. However, the battle is on a level that in some ways you might call can't be expressed in words altogether. But you will be aware of them as you start using your intuitive mind. And that is not a placated answer. That's a factual answer.
About the study drive. So I want people to know we have a lot of information on the study drive. So, let me see.
Now, many who know and have long been aware of the suppressed culture and the science and the history of Al-Marak, the Americas, do and have traditionally taken advantage of and have abused those who do not know the oath-kept secrets of and about the Moabite Moorish history of the Western Hemisphere. And if the people who are currently carrying the labels and brands, Negro, black, colored, Indian, West Indian, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Latin, Latino, etc., ever intend to be liberated or to be free from the alien, Albion abusive rulership in their own lands, they must learn to face truth and whatever and forever shun ignorance. And they must cease to the revered and the highly protected ritual and practice of substituting beliefs for knowledge. And the religiously promised and protected ignorance among the masses has no foundation in divine truth. And the foregoing fact is a matter and a major factor as to why the quote-unquote Christian black codes have been entrenched into the social order, operating so smoothly, going unchallenged and undetected. In this last century and a half of the Al-Moroccan history of 1865 AD, 1993 AD, that's the time of this writing, 1993, as being a raging financial success for the bureaucratic institution of warship and slavery in the Union of States. And this has occurred with the naivete, blind faith, and misinformed support of wards and slaves who have been deceived, arrogantly and ignorantly giving eager support and assistance to the Union of States and to the state's de facto institutions. And the time has come for all Asiatics of North America, Al-Marak, to seek and to secure their sources of knowledge and of education and erudition from a study of self and a link with other civilized nations outside of the colorable Union of States institutions, overseers, and their agents. The negative and vile conditions and experiences forced upon the Moors under the Union of States jurisdictions have proven that the persons and the peoples and the corporate entities of the Union of States and its peoples as being unethical, de facto, highly uncivilized, and the state citizens and representative bodies' politics are thoroughly corrupt and unworthy of governing or having any sovereign power or authority over anything or anyone outside of their own nations of origins and their de facto and projected affairs. Know you the truth, and the truth will set you free. Freedom and liberty is everybody's job. And I close my statements on the Christian Black Codes.
Let's see. Are there any more questions or comments? There's Tarik says, "Are you familiar with the sister out of Georgia, Chief Johnny's dealing with the land patents?" I guess
land patents were created.
Are you familiar with this? They're asking.
I've heard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But land patents were created actually with the U.S. corporations, with them stealing our land. The land patents are, by technicality and reality, not for the Aboriginal people. We have Aboriginal title that supersede any land patents or anything else that they've created for the transfer of our estates. However, I do comprehend many people have been using all kinds of methods, and I don't reject them or try to make a reclaim of our lost estate. However, keep in mind that the jurisdiction of the United States Corporation does not supersede your Aboriginal claim of title.
This must be someone new to the channel. Amon Ra Dimud. Is this no? I don't know whether they said mean no as well as should be knowledge. Only for Muslim. I see a lot of Islams. This is what they're saying.
Well, of course.
No.
But
it's obviously somebody that doesn't know that Islam means I, self-law, and master.
This is universal.
And they must be new to the saying.
These principles are universal for humanity. However, much of this information is targeted directly to the ancient Canaanite descendants and Moabite descendants at North America, because this is the landmark or the land area or the jurisdictional geographical territory from which the codes for the papacy of Rome is perpetrated upon the rest of the world through the U.S. Corporation, India Company, Virginia Company armies that belong to the Popes of Rome. To that degree, it is focused on the Moors of North America. However, the principles are for the whole world.
My assumption is this is someone who doesn't know about their Moorish nationality and birthright.
Well, they got to know a little bit of the history.
Right.
And this is again why, we'll go over some, just like, for instance, the Black Codes, right? If somebody's looking at Black Codes and they're looking at municipal codes, rules, regulations, zoning, policing policies, and then they read the Black Codes, they can see it. The linguistics is 1700s, if you get the point. However, it's very clear. So a lot of times people think the things that are happening today have what you call contemporary origin in the nature of someone having an attitude, when actually these people belong to some secret societies, and they're actually going, this is one of their manuals of operation. So when you know how do you say, you know the chessboard, you don't come to a chess game with playing checkers because you lose. But if you have a cognizance of what is being used against you, you have a knowledge of how to counter them.
Please let them know what Islam stands for when you're seeing it in the chat.
I, self-law, and master.
That's what
It's
Islam
another degree.
stands for.
It's not just a creed from the concept that most people have. And you'll learn that in time coming on the official House of Reawakening Minds. So we're clearing up a lot of concepts. You know, and I comprehend how people can be bent by that, because we keep in mind the training for most of our people is into what they call creed belief systems or social solace systems. So as soon as they hear shalom, assalamu alaikum, you know, they're assuming that people are in what you call ritual, structured, fenced in belief systems, and know this for sure. That's not for all of us.
English 69 Fatah asks, what is a treasury bond?
A treasury bond were created in mostly at North America, 1861, late 1861, 1862, on the backs of Aboriginal people, i.e. Moors, by the hybrid Germanic tribes, Europeans, to fund their India and Virginia company, which they converted into the corporate entity that you know as the United States, to fund their operations. Those were treasury bonds created on our backs about 150 years or more ago that the Pope mentioned when he made that letter to Obama. That's what those bonds are. That's the bondage, not a chain. And then, of course, all the marriage certificates and birth certificates following, and all the driver's license and the CDLs and all of those instrumentalities, business licenses, property taxes, all of these frauds were created, and all of those are bonded into treasuries, and they're put on the stock market. So the fraud of the stock market and the treasury bonds look around 1861. 1861, 1862, to fund the United States corporation, human trafficking operations, and the pretext of that private corporation, foreign entity, fakedly being a country, which it was not and is not. And of course, the results and the injury caused upon the human family, and particularly the people of North America, Central America, and South America, needs to be comprehended and understood. The Christian Black Codes is one of the doorways to let you comprehend their thinking and the motivation of their legislation, although their legislation altogether is and are and were de facto.
Here's a couple of more questions. Let me go up there. From Jabal El Tariq, does someone have to belong to a lodge to wear a fez and tassel? Does a fez make someone a Moor?
The fez is the national headdress of Asiatic Africans, Moabites, and Canaanites from long time immemorial, from times that we can't remember. It is actually
you see it on the walls, on the clock.
Yeah, geometric symbolization of the cosmos or the universe. That cosmos or universe is also symbolized by the crescent moon and the star of Venus. So when you see the cosmos symbol of the crescent and the star, people often, based on how they've been taught or mistaught, think it just means Islam. No, it means the cosmo culture of the ancient Canaanite Moabites. It is the culture of the world.
So do they have to belong to a lodge? Is what they're asking?
No, lodge is a contemporary construct of mostly hybrid Europeans coming into the knowledge of ancient Hikupta and imitating us, and it's called Freemasonry.
And does
the headdress is the national headdress of Moors, superseding any lodge.
Does the feds make one or more? He's asking.
More is your bloodline. How's the feds going to? How's your clothes? How's your sneakers? How's your Nikes going to make you more? Anything else? This is back to even like you notice that, Dr. Iowa, that even in the late years, very often as I travel, I don't even wear my fez so that people don't get distracted. I'm very down to earth, if you get the point, because people keep looking at it from a perspective and not paying attention to what you're telling them. That's the fez is the national headdress of the Moors, universally, and Moors tribes, i.e. Africans.
Here's another question. Let me go back here. Let me make sure I got that. Have you heard, still I rise, have you heard about banks rejecting qualified signature by customers signing all rights reserved UCC 13008? I was refused service and told that if I wanted my check cashed, comma, I don't know what, Chase Bank. Well, I guess they're.
Oh, of course. Now, if you comprehend what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with, you would. We're not defending what they're doing, but you already comprehend the answer as to why, because everything they're doing is fraud. And if they accept that instrument like that, which they could do, and some do, that you automatically have a future suit, because you already know that the check is a fraud. So is the fiat.
Now, someone told me that they signed theirs in a way that said they signed their signature cards. They went back to the bank, re-signed their signature cards, and added for credit only, I think, or something like that whenever they put the signature, they had to put for credit only. Does that make what was?
Well, what they're doing, they're limiting the jurisdictional use of the signature, because whenever you do business with them, they also lift your signatures and put it on instruments that you had nothing to do with. Because remember, the platform is a fraud, and when you participate with them, they're saying that you're sanctioning the fraud. Therefore, you can't argue rights because it's a fraud. It's sort of like. When people learn that the birth certificate and the marriage certificate are bank bonds, and then they talk about authenticating or securing them or becoming holder in due course of these instrumentalities and seeking a benefit. Because remember, they're fraudulent instruments that were created under fraud. They maintain fraud. So if you're trying to take a fraudulent instrument and bring it into a de jure venue, that creates a liability for them. Do you really expect their cooperation?
No, of course not.
Now, when they know it's a fraud, and now that you're signing like this, they know that you know it's a fraud,
right.
And they know if they accept it, you just set them up for a future suit.
Okay.
And you have a right to that. However, some of them don't argue it because they know things are falling apart. But some who do argue it, you already know the answer as to why they're not. It's like coming to Happy the Clowns and saying, Happy the Clown. Now I'm going to do business with you, Happy the Clown, but I know you're not the president. What do you mean I'm not the president? Happy the Clown, you're really not the president. Don't tell nobody. I mean, that's basically what you're dealing with. You understand? You know he's Happy the Clown. He knows you know that he's Happy the Clown. Now he's going to cooperate with you to say, well, which side of the neck should I put the noose? Does it look good over here or does it look good over there? They're looking at future liabilities. Keep in mind that treason, the wages of sin is death. The wages of treason is death. Almost all of these persons and people who have been operating on all levels of government at North America have committed treason. You think they're going to have documentation that backs that up? Accepting it from you? I'm just something to look at. Not condemning, not defending, just giving you something to look at. Right.
Last question is the person I think they're saying they answered it 5 times. Y'all got to realize these questions scroll fast, and then I can't get back up to them. So if you're putting things in multiple times and I'm not answering it or asking it, they don't see it, but I do see this.
Because it's scrolling as fast as we can move. Remember,
Right.
remember, you all, for the time that we're talking, we may have hundreds of people that
Trying to
are
get a question.
logged in and are forwarding questions, and you'll see I don't see them, but Dr. Naila does because she's producing the show.
And I can't see them.
They're
all
scrolling down as fast as you can. You can't even read them because they're scrolling down so fast and they're coming on so fast. We
Yeah.
appreciate your participation, but comprehend.
I think the
that you
question
can't
has
catch
something
all of them.
had something to do with real estate. What's real in us? And I was trying to find this question, but the one part of the question was what is eminent domain? And she said the question is for you. Although I do know eminent domain, having been the housing director,
It implies the sovereign
they're
is
right.
claiming for the estate the sovereign power of the
Sovereign
legitimate state to reclaim an estate or lands, etc., for the purposes of the good of the nation. That is called eminent domain.
When I was a housing director, one of the things that the city did had eminent domain over certain land. So you may there may be a tract of land there was where people lived when they were, for instance, when I-95 came through, they took eminent domain over all of those houses that were in the pathway,
whether they were paid or
not, and they offered you whatever price that they felt was fair, and you had to move.
And if you didn't take it, they took it anyway.
They took it anyway.
Now that's called sovereign power, sovereign authority. However, all operations as such under the India and Virginia Company, disguised as the United States, are frauds, treason, and in fact, criminal acts and violations and crimes against humanity. Keep that in mind.
Here's the question. The real estates, are reeling our estates. How do we crush this? And what is eminent domain? So we
and this is back to, and all of that's what? Christian Black codes. So what's really clear when we're